context, organized by Education USA Mexico. Through this event, we celebrate the contributions and achievements of women's leaders in fields like science, technology, engineering, politics, education, and business. By attending to our conference and conversations, you will learn about the opportunities and challenges that women in these different fields face. Also, you will have a better understanding between or how the relationships between Mexico and the United States can promote your academic or professional development. Before we start, please note that you can choose to listen to our event in English or in Spanish. You just have to click on the interpretation button on your screen. If you have any questions at any time, make sure to use the Q&A feature, and we will have some time at the end of our conference to review them. My name is Mabel Martinez, and I'm the Education USA Advisor for Colima, Nayarit, and Jalisco. And I will have the honor to conduct today's event. Our first conference will be how to communicate your values and create a personal brand. But before we start, I would like to briefly mention what Education USA is and what we do. We are a U.S. Department of State network of over 430 international student advising centers. We are located in more than 175 countries and territories. Basically, our network promotes U.S. higher education to students around the world by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information about the different opportunities available to you to study at an accredited institution in the United States. We are your official source of U.S. higher education. Whether you plan to study a short-term or a full degree program in the United States, Education USA has several resources that can help you navigate through the process. How do we do that? Through the 5 steps that we call them, your 5 steps to study in the US. And you can see them on the screen. So you can learn more about these 5 steps and our services and event at our website, educationusa.state.gov. That's been said, I would like to introduce you to our guest speaker. She is Erica Berman. She's the Program Officer for Education USA at the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. Erica is the author of Susie Cyrus Girl, winner of numerous state and local essay and poster contests. High school columnist for her local newspaper. She has always been a writer and a communicator with an eye for design her whole life, basically. Erica is skilled in organizational strategic communication, visual branding, message development, and develop and manage of websites and online communities, often in collaboration with outside creative teams and consultants. She is a skilled writer and editor, comfortable with storytelling and messaging in both traditional and digital formats. She has extensive knowledge of the international development and national service sectors, return Peace Corps volunteers, and the role of social media in the Peace Corps experience. She has spent 6 years working in Africa as well. And in general, she brings an energetic, creative, curious, and entrepreneurial mindset to everything that she does. Thank you very much, Erica, for accepting our invitation to address today's topic, how to communicate your values and create a personal brand. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to work with the Education USA advising team. They are just top notch in our network. And yes, it's a great pleasure. So, and it was interesting to be asked to talk on this topic. It's a little bit of a spin. It's asking a little bit for my personal sort of perspective on things, which isn't normally the case, but it's kind of fun. So I really enjoyed sort of putting together a presentation for you. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, and let's see here. It has to be enabled. It says host has disabled participant screen sharing. Okay.
We're gonna help you with that. Give us just a minute.
Okay.
I think you're able to do it now.
Okay, super. All right, let me, so I guess it's this way. Okay, let me go back to, well, I'm gonna leave it like the way it is. Can you see? Okay. Let's see, let me just go to file. Oh, we're just gonna leave it. Okay. Anyways, thank you so much, and I'll get started. So a little bit about me, as the instruction provided sort of an outline. This is kind of a little timeline view of me. I was as was mentioned, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. Both my undergraduate and my graduate degrees were in international relations. I worked a little bit in sort of what I call NGO world, sort of for environmental organizations around the, Washington, D.C. I spent several years sort of in a momming phase where I was a mom. I have two grown daughters. So I was doing some freelance writing, some consulting, both in overseas in Botswana and in Washington, D.C. And then ended up becoming the director of communications for the National Peace Corps Association, which is like an alumni association for people who have served in the Peace Corps. Peace Corps is a 2-year voluntary government program where people can go around the world and live and work in local communities, helping make the world a better place. So I was there at sort of the beginning of, and I don't say the beginning of the internet, but certainly the beginning of social media. So it was a really fun, creative, exciting time. I've worked as an adjunct professor at American University, teaching communications and sort of digital communication. And since 2016, I've been a program officer with Education USA, based in the State Department and Washington, D.C. So what do I do? I spend a lot of time thinking about branding and Education USA branding in particular, but also some of our, some of our sister organizations, Fulbright and State Department itself has branding. And what I'm thinking about are sort of these 5 things that I've listed here, which are brand vision, which sort of articulates like where we're going and what we want to do. Our brand promise, which is sort of, states what our commitment is to the public. Our brand stance, which is sort of the one idea that we want to make sure people know. The brand experience and sort of our visual identity. So these are sort of the fundamentals of branding. And some people will say there's 6 building blocks, there's 3 building blocks, but these are the 5 that sort of Education USA is built on. What is though personal branding? And I'm going to try to switch this to a different, this view is bothering me here. So I'm going to close this preview and go to present mode here. Okay, that's better. Okay, there we go. So what is personal branding? And this is from Wikipedia. It's like the conscious and intentional effort to create and influence public perception of a person. By positioning them as an authority, basically, to ultimately advance their career, increase their circle of influence, have a larger impact. This is actually a pretty young term. It was actually first coined in 1997, which may seem like a long time ago, but it's actually not that long ago. So this is a kind of certainly a more recent concept of how we sort of present ourselves. So why do we need to think about personal branding? And I have a few reasons. First of all, people form impressions in seconds. It's not a pejorative. There's no value. It's just the way human beings are hardwired. Our brains are just wired to very quickly, matter of seconds, to make assessments of people, of situations, to sort of read people and sort of, and those impressions, so that they're very quickly. And so, a lot of those opportunities that we have in life, are coming through word of mouth and through reputation. So knowing who you are and what you want and being able to articulate it, present it, increases the chances that you're going to find your right fit. Let it be you who is creating that impression, having as much control over those first, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, or however, and longer, than leaving it to chance. So this is not about like creating some sort of like fake thing. Like this is like, the whole point is to really convey the real, authentic you. Okay, this is not sort of puffery or like window dressing, or this is to really present you. Okay. Let's see here. So this is more than job titles. This is more about job. This is your life. Okay. This is your life that we're talking about. What is your life's mission and purpose? And I think the process for this is, I think we all are on different, I think you never stop doing this. Many of you are probably, more at the beginning of your career or your educational journey. You've got a long career and sort of life ahead of you, but it never stops. You're always assessing and reassessing. So, the first question to ask that I always tell people is like, you got to start from like, what are your passions? What do you love? What do you hate? That's valuable knowledge too. What makes you talk faster and louder? Because those are the topics that clearly you have a passion about. It just shows when somebody is passionate about something. Other ways to find, think about finding your passions, or like, oh, I'm so interested in so many things, or I'm not really interested in anything, but it's there. You just have to spend some work kind of digging it out. So like, for example, if you were to go into a bookstore, where do you go? What section do you go to? What books do you pick up and look at? Or in a library? If I looked at your Facebook, if you looked at your Facebook ad settings, it's like way buried in Facebook. There's a place where Facebook is like watching everything that you do, and you can actually find out what their sort of the profile that they've created of you. Like, what would you find there? Are you really, really interested in automobiles or cryptocurrency? Like, what is it? Because you have passions and you have interests. So being mindful about those is like a really important step. Taking inventory about those things that you love, things that make your heart go faster, things that you just can't contain yourself. Make a note of those, like really start a diary, start a notebook, because it's like it's the book of you, where you want to start writing some of those things down, making lists. The next part is to ask, like, what are your talents? What activities make you lose track of time? I think that's like a really important, sort of measure. Sometimes we are just in a task and we look up and say, oh my gosh, it seems like, I just started and 3 hours have gone by, but it just seems like a split second because you were in this sort of flow state. It's something that you clearly were really absorbed in. Make a note of that. What do people come to you and ask you for help with? Make a note of that. Okay. What comes really easily to you? And do you sort of something that you just take for granted? I found this very much in my own life. I when I was in my 30s, I was like a sort of a young mom. I'd been living overseas for 4 years in Africa. I had I had two very young kids. Didn't really hadn't really started my career like really firmly. And we came back to the United States, and I had these two kids, and I need childcare to look for a job. I need a job to look for childcare. And I think I had sort of my midlife crisis, and I spent a lot of time sort of thinking, through these questions. And it was sort of like, what are my talents? Like, what would anybody pay me for to do? Right. So I asked myself a lot of questions, and I realized that, through it all the different jobs I've had, the things I've done, writing was actually, a talent, something that had been sort of there all through my life. And it was always something that I had sort of taken for granted. Like, well, anybody can write, right? Like, anybody can do that. So I didn't put a lot of value on it. I probably spent too much time in graduate school taking, forcing myself to take these economics courses because, I really should have been going towards my strengths rather than trying to force myself to fill my weaknesses. So, pay attention to those moments when people come to you for something, when people compliment you, like, oh, you're so good at this. Make a note of it. Like, just file that information away. And if you have a hard time, like, trying to identify these things, ask people, talk to your friends, talk to your, if you have a mentor, a professor, your family members. Like, what am I good at? Like, what do you see? How do other people see you? Those are the people you should ask those questions to. So, in thinking about this talk, I thought, let me just, I've given you my sort of professional spiel, but I thought, here, this is a little bit snapshot of me as, the non-work Erica, and these are sort of some things that have been important in my life that really have shaped my sort of career and my brand, if you will. I'm a first generation American. My father was a refugee. I had sort of a foot on both sides of the ocean. I always, from an early age, had an awareness that the world was a bigger place. I kept a diary. I was a voracious reader, so I'm, absorbing content. I also was writing a lot. I entered a lot of poster contests. Again, I tell people, what is social media if not a poster contest? It's words and pictures. And so I was doing this back in elementary school. Little did I know that this would become my career. So there are these clues in your life, that these little pieces and experiences that are putting you on a path, on a direction that you never know. So yeah, I also said I like to organize things. I hate bad lighting. I'm very sensitive to sort of aesthetics. Peace Corps and that mission, it's clearly resonated with me throughout my life. The idea of like helping people and making the world a better place. So these are some of the things that have been like swirling, and they would be like in my notebook when I'm trying to figure out like what I want to do with myself. So, thinking again, as you're forming your brand and sort of thinking like, who am I? It's like, what values are important to you? Is community and having a sense of community important? Is autonomy and independence really important to you? Kindness or balance or challenge. I mean, it's not the same for everybody. So spending some time thinking about, what are those things, those qualities that you admire or that you value? And if it's hard to identify those, think of people that you admire. Are there some heroes or heroines that you have? Who do you admire in your life? Why do you admire them? That's a clue. That's, pointing you into some of those key values. Write it down in your little notebook. The next question, the big question is like, what problem do you want to solve? Like, what is it in the world that you want to fix? Could be big, could be small. This is your brand vision, is your mission. For Education USA, we say Education USA is promoting the diversity of the U.S. higher education to help international students find their best fit. So diversity of U.S. higher education is the problem we want to solve, right? We want to provide students an opportunity to maximize their, to fulfill their potential. And we also want to, promote the diversity of U.S. higher education. It's aspirational. This is the world we want. We want a world that is diverse and where people can have their talents shine. That's Education USA's mission. What is your mission? So when you take those passions and those talents and those values and figure out some specific roles that you want to play to make that mission happen, that's your purpose. Like that's where you're going. That's what you're here for. And everybody's different. Everybody has a different purpose, a unique purpose. This is your brand vision, your purpose. We talk about, again, for Education USA, about the brand promise. Education USA's brand promise is to provide accurate, current, and comprehensive information to international students while assisting accredited US institutions with their international student recruitment and retention efforts. It's basically one or two sentences in a very concise way to say, this is who I am, and this is what I can do for you. This is my promise to you of what you hire me or you work with me, and this is what you're going to get. So, for me, I've boiled it down, and I haven't revisited this recently, but I think it still holds. And you'll find it on my LinkedIn profile. It's, I help mission-driven, internationally focused organizations working for positive change in the world communicate more effectively. That's what I do. On Twitter, my little tagline is strategic communication for positive change in the world. So it's communication, it's working with a certain type of organization, and I want to make the world a better place. Those are my values. The next piece of your personal branding is your brand experience. What are 3 or 4 adjectives that best describe the value that you offer? I think in my introduction to me, they also again mentioned my, my brand promise. Let me just pull it up here because I can't remember it all. I bring energetic, creative, curious, entrepreneurial mindset to everything I do. What are your adjectives? Are you collaborative? Are you diplomatic? Are you intuitive? Are you enterprising, ethical? Again, find a few words that really sort of speak to you and capture what it is that you offer. So I'm going to give you a few practical tips because this is, it's all great to sort of talk about this abstract stuff, but also just a few practical tips that I'm thinking about this. After we've done, again, this sort of, our brand mission, our brand promise, all those different things, we're also like talking about sort of the visual. I spend a lot of time, again, living with Education USA's branding colors and fonts and sort of how things look. And, you should also spend some time on sort of your appearance too, because people are going to make very quick impressions. A tip, just as we care about like what Education USA colors are, spend some time figuring out what your colors are. And I've done this too. There's certain colors that just look really good on people on their coloring and other ones that don't. And it's different for every person. So spend some time looking at color and figuring out like what color makes you just look wow. Because why wouldn't you always want to look wow, right? I have a particular fondness for this very fun middle-aged British lady whose Instagram I follow. She's all about colors and finding people's best colors. And these are 2 snapshots where she was, doing drapes, trying to figure out like what the best color for this woman. But it's actually fascinating when you watch the sort of the videos that they do of, you can really see some colors just don't look great on people, and other people, all of a sudden it just like they just radiate. So do yourself a favor, find what your brand colors are, and lean into them and wear them onto interviews and wow people. have a photo, have photos ready. I can't tell you how many times we have speakers. We reach out to speakers for different events that we do, and people don't have photos. Like they don't have, it's kind of shocking, frankly. Everybody should have ready at any moment, should have a high resolution headshot, a good headshot. The photo you see here of me, I don't think it's quite like print publication quality, but it's good enough. It's iPhone portrait mode done in my bedroom. So either do that or have a friend do a little photo shoot, but everybody should have a headshot because you just need to have a headshot, and a good one, well lit, large enough, one that you're happy with and would not be embarrassed by. So get that done. You should also have some action shots of what you do. There's a photo here of me as a Peace Corps volunteer teaching in the Gambia. And I used to tell people, Peace Corps volunteers, make sure you get that action shot, because you never know, someday you may become the director of the Peace Corps, and the communications office is going to want to have that photo of you as a Peace Corps volunteer. So get some photos of you in a laboratory, or giving us a talk, or interacting in a classroom, whatever it is that you do. See if you can get some nice photos of also just who you are doing what you do best. So again, you have to have visuals. If you don't have a photo, it never happened, and get a good headshot. My other sort of tip is just keep an everything resume. This is an everything bagel. Have a document where it's your own private document, but it's like where you put everything you've ever done, every job, every internship, every volunteer experience, and be as wordy as you want. It can be like 10 pages long, it doesn't matter. This is your data bank, your sort of, that you can like pull from throughout your life, really. You can always pull through, depending on whatever the opportunity is, that you have it all there. So you have it at your fingertips. Where did I work? What year, what dates? What did I do? You're not necessarily going to put all of that in a resume, but write it down, I also tell our interns when they start an internship, I say, please, keep a document, keep a list of what you do. And then at the end of your internship, give it to me, so that when somebody asks me for a reference, I know what you did. Because of course, so many of us, we're doing a million things. What did I do last month? I don't remember what project I worked on. Keep a list of your sort of tasks and accomplishments. So, and when you need a reference, you'll be able to pull out easily those, key things that you accomplished and present it to whoever your boss is, or your supervisor, or your professor. So they, because they have many students, and so you can make it easy for them, and they can just, oh yes, Laura, she did this. She did an excellent job doing this project, and it's all there. Finally, this is sort of my end message. Speaking of everything bagels, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. This is, it's crazy times, but it's going to be okay, and you're going to figure it out, and it'll be all right. So that's my sort of closing message. This is how you can contact me. You can also look for me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and I'm even on Instagram. So that's sort of the end of my presentation and about personal branding. And I'm happy, I don't know what the time situation is, but I'm happy to answer questions or so forth.
Thank you, Erica. Very, very interesting topic, and very interesting the way you approach it. There are some questions from the audience, and
Okay.
for that, I will give the floor to my colleague, Yandir Reynoso, so she can tell you more about the depths of our audience.
Great. Thank you, Mabel, and thank you, Erica, for your great conference. We have received a few questions on our different channels. The first one for you is, there are many new brands that advertise for free on social media. How could I make my own brand stand out from all of them?
Yeah, and I think I also missed. I must have like somehow missed the slide somewhere too, because I also talk about yeah, sort of making sure on you know, on digital media that you have like, make sure you lock down your professional email address, potentially by a URL. You know, again, lock down a URL for yourself. Yeah, so those are, and those are some, also some big, Google yourself, like literally Google yourself and find out what comes up. The other thing, I think I must have missed a slide somewhere. A slide must have gone missing. You know, spend some time, I mean, LinkedIn, people, you know, some people say, oh, no, LinkedIn, like, what's the point? I'm sorry, LinkedIn comes up very high in search results. And it's a great opportunity, a great way to sort of brand yourself. If it's the first place I look to find out about somebody is looking at their LinkedIn. So make sure your LinkedIn is on point, and make sure you have a profile photo, a cover photo that works for you. Either it's a photo you've taken or it relates to you. It used to be that you had to have like a pro account to be able to upload a cover photo. I don't know if that's still the case, but get the pro account and then cancel it. But they've never taken away my cover photo. So make sure you've got the whole branding package. So how can you make sure that your brand like stands out? First of all, you have to study the competition. You have to study the field, whatever it is that you're, whether you're selling a product or you're in a, yeah, whatever it is, you first have to really sort of be in, you have to be on the platform, you know, figure out what platform the thing it is that you want to do is best served by. You know, Twitter is probably, it's a great place professionally and for conversations. Instagram is, you know, a different platform than, you know, than Facebook, than Twitter. So figure out what platform, what it is you're trying to, you know, and focus, be strategic. Like, rather than try to be everywhere and do a mediocre job everywhere, pick your platform, you know, and do it well. That would be like, you know, my advice. That's advice I share with my Education USA colleagues. You know, I think also it's just really important to be consistent and to be authentic. My daughter, I have a daughter who is living in London, and during the lockdown, they had a very strict lockdown in London, and she decided, you know, like, what am I going to do? You know, what am I going to do during this time? And so she decided to take up roller skating, old school quad roller skating. And so she bought herself some skates, and January 1st, 2021, and said, I'm going to like skate every day. Every day I'm going to practice. And she actually took some videos. You know, she started doing clips of her to track her projects, her progress. You know, she was just doing it for herself, maybe for her mom, you know, a few friends. It wasn't like she had grand visions of becoming a brand. Yet somewhere along the way, she did. She has almost, she's coming up on 20,000 followers on her Instagram account. It's kind of mind blowing. And when you know, but when I asked her, I think like, why? It's because she's consistent. She posted every day. You know, people started looking forward to her content. She used hashtags smartly. She researched what were the hashtags like to follow, you know, for this in the roller skating community to get more visibility. And then she was authentic. You know, she didn't just, you know, she showed her, because she was learning a skill. You know, she was you know, she was learning, and she would fall, and she wasn't always perfect, but people, you know, embrace that, and they like to see the empathy, you know, empathize and see a person's progress and journey. They became part of her story, and she's got like 20,000 followers. She actually, on her birthday this year, was celebrating with her friends, and her bag with both her laptop and her roller skates were stolen at her birthday celebration. Heartbreaking, right? She's also a grad student, so it was like, yeah, it was bad, right? And so she posted about this on her Instagram account, saying like, God, like, this is what happened. If anybody finds my roller skate on some, it's for sale somewhere. But people, her followers, they were like, what can we do? Like, within a day, they had sent her enough money to buy new roller skates. So that's, how do you like grow a brand? It's knowing going through these steps of like, what am I doing here? Like, what's my purpose? What am I trying to accomplish? Being strategic on what platform you are, being authentic, being consistent, having a consistent visual language for your whatever it is you're doing. My daughter's roller skates happen to be tangerine orange. So like, orange is her color sort of now. That's her brand color, is orange. When she got her skates stolen and had to replace them, there was no question. Of course, she was going to have to get orange skates because she was now that orange roller skating girl. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We do have a few more questions for you. Next one will be, how do you suggest to incorporate our weaknesses in our personal branding?
Yeah. Oh, I always hate those questions. The weakness one. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I think it's just being human. I mean, I think being I was thinking like, this, it's funny because like, if you, I was always struggle with this weakness question on interviews, and I thought, for the State Department job, like one thing I really hated was like spreadsheets. I just couldn't, like my brain just didn't work well with spreadsheets. All these years later, what am I doing a lot of? Like spreadsheets, and I actually love them. So you just never know. The things that you feel are a weakness can often turn. I think just being human and just showing, that you're not always perfect. That is not always, show a little bit behind the scenes of how the sausage is made. Those are some ways, that can sort of humanize and bring people sort of become your supporters, because they want to help you through whatever that challenge is.
Great. Thank you so much. One more question. What would you tell people to focus on as a starting point?
As a focus on a starting point. Again, I think those spending time, again, like, what do I love? What are my interests? And I think, what are my interests? And again, and like, what is trying to find that thread, that those things that pull it all together. For me, a different, it's been, for me, it was, I know when I was sort of at a certain stage in my career, I was like, okay, I'm going to go back in the workforce. I'm going to, I've had to really, again, get this very clear. And I knew I wanted to, that writing was the skill that I had, and I knew I wanted to work in international contexts with international sort of organizations, and I knew my work-life balance at the time, I needed it to be part-time. So I needed, I was clear about those three things. I think if you're sort of clear, oftentimes you think, oh, I could do that. Oh, I'll turn myself into a pretzel and do that, but you have to sort of remind yourself don't turn yourself into a pretzel for like, who are you and what are your strengths and what can you do, and what do you love? Those are the things that you just have to follow. I think that's yeah.
Thank you, Erika. Somebody's asking if you have any books or resources on personal branding that you will recommend.
I don't have gosh. it's not something that I've actually like read books on, frankly. There's a million articles out there. I think just like have your antenna open, like who's doing it well, you know, just see who is it that you admire, who's doing it well. I think there is a book that was, I think, running quite a while. I think it's like Ideas That Stick. I don't remember who the author is. The cover's orange. There's a million articles and TED Talks and books. But I think just looking at people you admire, who's doing it well, and what can you learn from them? That's because it's always changing. My goodness, it's always changing. It's changing so fast. Yeah, it's so. Yeah, you always have to sort of stay up on top of, that's what makes this kind of work interesting and fun. But yeah, by the time it's in a book or you've taken a formal course at a university, like that's like old news. It's happening. People are doing it all around us. Okay, no need to go, read a book.
Thank you. And following on that question, what people come to mind as examples of stellar personal branders to you?
Ooh, organizations that are really good or people. Oh gosh, I think I put on, oh goodness, I'm trying to think. I follow a million people on Instagram, that are sort of aesthetically pleasing to me. Oh gosh. Yeah, I can't even think of anybody like off the top of my head. I mean, to pick out one, to see who I follow on Instagram. I don't know. I mean, I think you'll know. I mean, they just stand out. They have I tend to go to sort of clean, minimalist aesthetic, but people again who sort of know, who have it all sort of in a nice package. The visuals are cohesive, that are, providing useful, consistent content. Those are some of the folks.
Great, thank you. And one last question for you. Do you think working on a personal branding is more useful in certain specific fields?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think this is, I think it's funny, again, this term personal branding, again, did not even exist till 1997. There's actually just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, there was this big discussion, argument on Twitter among journalists, because there's a woman whose name is Taylor Lorenz, who is a New York Times reporter. She focuses on new media. She writes in the New York Times in a very serious way about TikTok collab houses, and she is really on the cutting edge of looking at this world very seriously, and so she made some comment about journalists and personal branding, and a lot of journalists got really like their noses out of joint. I think it's the world we live in, that we have a digital, we have a larger presence beyond just, meeting people in the physical world face to face or an interview. I think people think it's fake. I think maybe that's why some people don't like the term. It sounds like fake, like I'm a product, but it's just don't call it personal branding then, but it's figuring out like who I am and how I want to present myself to the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's, I think it's something we all should be, that we live in the world, we live with other people. And so, to care about how you present yourself, that kind of impression you make, whether it's written materials or visually or interpersonally, it's important, and so.
Great, thank you. Thanks everyone for sending your questions using the Q&A feature. We were able to ask Erica all of your questions and doubts through our different channels. And thank you, Erica, for sharing these tips and recommendations in this section. And now, Mabel, we're back with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yendi, and thank you to the audience for participate. Thank you again, Erica, for accepting our invitation to address this topic. And we know you have a busy agenda and you give us the time to share your experience. We are confident that everything you have accomplished will inspire other women to keep looking for professional, personal, and academic opportunities and start working on their personal brand. Thanks again. And now it's time to let Erica go. We're gonna have a small break, 13 minutes break. On the second part of today's event, it will start at 6 p.m. You can stay in this session or just come back in a few minutes. You just have to use the same link you received when you register. But thank you everyone for being here, and that means our last conversation in a few minutes. We hope to see you. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Just let me, yes. For those of you just joining, please notice that you can choose to listen to our event in English or Spanish. You just have to click on the interpretation button on the right side of your screen. Also, if you have any question, make sure to use the Q&A feature and we'll have some time at the end to review them. I'm gonna introduce myself again for all of you that just joined now. My name is Mabel Martinez and I'm the Education USA Advisor for Colima, Nayarit, and Jalisco. And I will be conducting this conversation about the importance of networking. But to talk about this issue, we have two very special guests. I would like to introduce to Malor. If you can turn your camera on, Malor. She is a regional public engagement specialist based in Mexico City and covers the countries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, and Panama. She was previously in Bogota, Colombia, and Accra, Ghana. Malor served as an information resource officer in Abuja, Nigeria, and in the Office of American Spaces in Washington, D.C. As a university professor, she taught at the Graduate School of Information Science at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and Rogers University in New Jersey. She holds a multidisciplinary PhD in the areas of urban education and library and information science, and a master's in history also from the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and a bachelor's degree in Spanish from Marquette University. On the other hand, hi Malor, welcome. On the other hand, we have another very special and important guest, Sofia Cruz del Rio Castellanos. If you can turn on your camera, Sofia, or maybe I cannot see you. She is the founder of Techity, and she is also a wildlife farmer grantee. Sofia studied business creation and development at the Instituto Tecnológico de Estudios Superiores de Monterrey in Guadalajara. She completed a semester abroad in Johns Hopkins, Sweden. She is a former participant of the Young Leaders of the American Initiative, known as Wildlife Program, and she participated in Unreasonable Mexico and La Sociedad de Emprendedores Públicos. With Techity and Mexicaltecal, Sofia has managed to integrate her passion into the same project. Techity seeks to link artisanal techniques with different industry, improving sales while driving social change. With Mexicaltecal, in hand seeks to reduce other two gaps that limit artisans: access to education and technology opportunities for business, and improve the platform that exists in the current system to support artisans. She's also a co-founder of Fight Club Guadalajara, a community of 20 women leaders who seek professional growth and active participation in building a better society. Thank you, Malor and Sofia. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today. So let's get started with our conversation. I would like to start this conversation with a very probably simple but powerful question. In your personal point of view, from your experience, what is networking and why is it important to start creating a networking? And I would like to start with Sofia, because she is already with the microphone on.
Thank you very much, Mabel, and thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to share a little bit of my story and my experience. I think networking for me has been an opportunity to learn from others, basically, and to find people that have, or either there's the same goals or they have work and they have an experience in things that I want to do. And it has been amazing to share stories, to learn from them. It's having a sense of community and not feeling alone. So yes, I think above all, networking is about sharing, about learning, about being open, about building better societies and strong relationships.
Thank you, Sofia. What about you, Malor? For you, what is the meaning of networking?
Well, I agree with everything that Sofia said. As a more, for me, more officially, I think networking is about building relationships. It's about the process of meeting and sharing information with individuals and groups of people in your field of interest. It's connecting with those individuals that you have made contact with, using your social, personal, and professional contacts to help you learn more about a field of interest or an organization. I also want to point out that a lot of people think that networking is for people who are extroverts. It's not just for extroverts. Networking is for everyone. And I think that we need to be comfortable with doing it and make it a part of just being ourselves, of an extension of who we are.
Thank you for that, Malor. And yeah, sometimes we think that, right? That just the extrovert people is the one that can do good networking, and on the contrary, everyone should do it. Yeah, and in this sense, I would like to ask you, how have you developed your network and what has been its benefit? Feel free to share some examples, and I would like briefly introduce what do you do on a regular basis on your job, or when you use this networking, just to create, just the audience can understand how do you implement like networking.
Do you want me to start? Should I start? Okay, so I think for me, networking has been happening in like different areas of my life. First, in the academic area, or in the part that has to do with learning. For me, it's about searching opportunities. And as you read, I've been participating in different programs. I have seen it of what I need, for example, in the business, what I need to learn. And when I take these programs, it has given me the opportunity to know other stories, know other people, learn from their experience. And I have basically been building networks in these programs. No, I have these different groups where we continue for for several years in communication. And now, for example, with Wild AI, that we were from different parts of Latin America, we now have a network that basically we have one people in each country, no? So if I ever either travel for pleasure or know about something that's happening there or know of a very good practice in a business, I have someone to talk to and I have someone to ask to. And for example, in terms of being more in parts of activism and helping in society, we basically detected the people that were very strong in terms of handcrafts and building businesses in Mexico and fighting for the cause and to improve the quality of the context the artisans are facing. And I basically like went searching for one of them, and we built the alliance with universities, with different businesses, with ONGs. So that's also like, I think there's never like a perfect context, or like you can also create your own network if you need it in search of a goal. No, so I think like there's always like a way, and basically since I've been building the business, I'm the only founder. For me, it's been a very nice experience to share my problems, to learn solutions, and to work as a team with other people. So it's not something like we all think like networking is an event and you have to go and give your card and start conversations. You can also do it like at distance if you wanna, for example, have a mentor or something, and it's just like keeping track of the relationships and building, no, building something for the future. I don't know, Malor, how has your experience been?
No, well, I agree with you, Sophia. I think for me, at least, I was networking before networking was a word. I think I developed my network from, as you said, working with other people. I also developed my network from being a member of professional organizations. So organizations that were particular to the profession that I was in. I used to be a librarian, and so I joined the American Library Association, which is the oldest and largest organization for librarians and libraries worldwide. And I did that when I was a master's degree student, and I'm still a member. And so I have a lot of friends that I met through the American Library Association that I only knew from attending these conferences or doing professional development, giving presentations there and keeping in touch with them. I mean, there was a time that I would only see them once or twice a year at these conferences, but in between conferences, I would send email or I would send a personal note if I read something in the official magazine called American Libraries and someone was promoted or someone got a new job. I would send them a congratulation note in the mail. I would look up to see where their library was, and I would write a handwritten note and send it to them. Or if I saw an article that was on a website and I knew a certain person was working in corporate libraries or someone was in a public library, university library, and I thought, oh, this would be interesting for so-and-so, I would make a copy of that article or just send them the PDF in an email and say, hey, I thought this would be interesting to you and the work that you do. And I just gave them information and not asking anything in return. I think it's so important for us to learn that we should maintain our networks at all times. Think of other people, give them information. And so when you do need somebody or when you do need to ask a favor, you can ask without hesitation. It's not like, oh God, I haven't talked to this person in 3 years and now I'm gonna ask them for a recommendation, or now I'm gonna ask them, what do they know about this particular job? And so it's not, I have a friend who's a university professor still, and she posted something on Facebook that she heard from one of her former students and say, hey, can you write me a recommendation? And that was the email. And she was like, who are you? You know, because first of all, the student didn't even say, okay, number one, she didn't remember the student at all. But I mean, as a university professor, you have so many students, hundreds and hundreds of students every semester. So instead, what this young person or this person should have done was written the email and say, dear Professor so-and-so, I graduated in 2018. I took your advanced reference class in the summer session. I'm applying for this job in XYZ. Over the last 3 years, this is what I've been doing. Do you mind writing me a recommendation? Remember the final project I did for you? I did a paper on XYZ. So that way the professor remembers who you are. I mean, so my friend was like, should I write the recommendation? I was like, you don't even know who this person is. What are you gonna say? They got an A in my class, you don't remember them. And so I think just if you haven't been in touch with someone before you ask for a favor, send an email and just say, hey, what's going on? Here's what I've been up to. I hope all is well with you. Don't ask for anything in that first email, just wait. And then when they reply and they say, oh, I'm doing well, how are you? And you would say, oh, I'm doing great. You know, matter of fact, I am applying for a new job and I was wondering if, and so that's how you would introduce that and use your network in that respect. And I think a lot of people just don't do the fine art of keeping in touch. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
That was an excellent example of what not to do when you are trying to build a networking. And thank you for sharing that experience because I think it's very illustrative. And I hope the audience is taking note on what not to do and what to do. But following up like this, these errors or mistakes, you already mentioned one example, Malor, but Malor, do you have you seen or have you experienced a time when you make an error on networking or on your experience? What do you think are the most common mistakes when creating a networking?
Yeah, I'm sure I've made mistakes. I mean, I've been at this for a long time. I'm sure I made rookie mistakes early on. Nowadays, not as much. But I think the most common error that we find is that people have this fear of networking and they put it off and they put it off and they're like, oh, I'm scared to send this person an email or I'm scared to make this, you know, this phone call. And just do it. Like Nike says, just do it, just start. You know, if you're afraid, just ask someone to make an e-introduction. Say, if you look on their LinkedIn and you know they're connected to someone in your network, I would say, hey, Yandini, can you send an email to that lady that you know and say, oh, Malor Brown, I work with her at the Benjamin Franklin Library and I'd like to connect you. And then I can take it from there. Or say something really nice about me or the work that I do. I think that's really important. That's a common mistake, is this people have this fear of networking. The other thing that people do is they don't follow up. So say you meet someone at an event, you exchange business cards. What do you do with those business cards? You just throw them in the corner or in a basket? No, follow up. What I would do at the end of every day at every conference I went to, on the back of the card, I would write the date that I met that person and where I met them. If I met them at a certain event or a reception, I would write that on the card. So when I sent them an email at the end of the conference, I'd say, oh, hi, Susan, it's Malor. We met at that reception at, you know, the Los Angeles Public Library. I hope you're doing well. I hope you got home safely, you know, and so you're following up. I remember early on in my career, I went to an event and I really wanted to get this job working for Sesame Street. And some of you guys know Plaza Sésamo here in Latin America. And I went to a breakfast event at a professional conference. And when, well, before that, excuse me, I wanted to get a job at the Gates Foundation. So I went to this event. I went by myself, and the lady taking the ticket said, "Are you by yourself?" I said, "I am." She goes, "Well, can you do me a huge favor?" I said, "Well, it depends. What do you need?" She goes, "I need some seat fillers." She said, there's a table up front where all our guests of honors are sitting. And I was wondering, she said, "I have a couple of empty seats there. Would you mind sitting there?" I said, "Well, who's sitting at the table?" And she said, "Oh, there are 3 people from the Gates Foundation and someone from Sesame Street." I said, "Oh, of course, I'd love to sit there." So I ended up sitting at this table with people from the Gates Foundation. Here's another thing. Don't be offended if people don't want to talk to you. These people at the Gates Foundation were talking among themselves. They just wanted to talk to each other. I'm like, you work with each other. Why are you talking to each other? So I ended up sitting next to this guy. I don't know who the guy was. He said his name was Gary. And I was like, "Hi, Gary, my name is Malor." So I'm just chit-chatting with him. And he goes, "What do you do?" And I tell him what I do. And another thing I'm gonna talk about is have your elevator speech or your elevator pitch ready. You know what you do, what you're good at, and be able to tell that to people in a minute or 2 minutes, no more than that. Be concise, be specific. Let people know what you're asking for. Don't go in there unprepared. So always know your stuff. Turns out the guy, Gary, I'm sitting next to, he's the guy from Sesame Workshop. He's the guy from Sesame Street. He gets up, he gives the keynote address, and he's like, "Oh," and he plays this song from a television show called The Electric Company that was on in the 1970s. I grew up watching that show, and I'm singing along to the song because I know the song, right? And he goes, "I see some of my new friends know the song." And then afterwards, I was like, I can't believe I was sitting next to the guy and didn't even know that, but that's okay. Long story short, afterwards, I say to him, I said, "Hey, Gary, are you guys hiring for this show?" Which I don't suggest people do, but I had already talked to him. And so we had established a relationship. And he goes, "You know what, Malor?" He's like, "Here's my business card. I'm going to be out of town for 2 weeks. But if you send me an email on or after July 15th, I will respond." He said, "Don't send me anything before that because my email is going to be packed. But send me an email and let's talk." He goes, "And if you're in New York sometime in July or August, I'd love to have you in the office." And I said, "You know what? I am going to be in New York." I wasn't, but guess what? I could buy a plane ticket. But he didn't know that. I was just like, I'm going to New York, you know? And so long story short, after this breakfast, I didn't get to talk to the Gates Foundation people, their loss. But the gentleman who was in charge of the breakfast, he was the president and CEO of the Urban Libraries Council. And I went and I said to him, I said, "Martin," I said, "do you know this guy, Gary, the guy who was a keynote speaker?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm on their board of directors." I said, "You are?" I said, "I got a favor to ask you." He goes, "Yeah, sure." I said, "I need you to put in a good word for me because I just hit him up for a job." He said, "Well, what do you want me to say?" I said, "Martin, don't worry about it. I will write the email. All you have to do is copy and paste it into your email and send my resume to him." And I said, "But don't do it until July 15th. I will send you an email when to do it." And that's what I did. I followed up. There's so many people who do not follow up. And yes, I got a job working for Sesame Workshop, heading up the Electric Company, the relaunch of that show. So I'm just saying, I went in thinking I'm going to talk to the Gates Foundation people, and they were busy talking amongst themselves, but you never know who's in the room and you never know who you're talking to. So be kind to everyone. I mean, whether or not, I didn't know Gary was the president and CEO of Sesame Workshop. I had no idea. Just ended up talking to him because the Gates Foundation people were talking to themselves. And I'll stop there. Okay, go ahead, Sofia.
Great. No, I think you gave like the perfect recommendations. I think the only thing that I would add is just be so like super conscious of the time of people. because I have either been invited or have been approached by someone, and I think what really bothers me is that maybe they are not on time, and the other part, they don't really, when I leave a conversation feeling that someone didn't appreciate my time, or if I gave advice, if someone gives you advice, if you approach someone asking a favor, and like when you give something and you don't know if they implement it or not, or they are not, like, you don't understand what happened after that call, I think that also leaves you like, I don't know why they approached me if they didn't do what I told them to do. No, maybe if you are asking for a job, or either if you're asking for I don't know, the contact of a customer, or either to apply for a program, like, just I think those two are advices, as you said. Follow up and let people, like, give them an update of the favor they did to you, or the connection they made for you, even though it's after 6 months or whatever. Like, just say thank you, this happened, and I'm very happy. And the other one is be on time and really appreciate the time of others. Don't go into details they don't need to go. As you said, the elevator pitch, have it ready, because people don't want to know the lifelong story of someone. No, they want something that be practical and that can let them also enjoy the rest of the evening and meet more people.
Again, those tips, I think they are really, really great. Hopefully our audience is taking notes again, because I just, I was taking notes as well. They were really useful, actually. And in that sense, do you use any platform or tool? How do you select where are you going to do like networking?
For me, I think it's important. Well, yes and no. So I'm old school. So I have a list, like a contact list, and I created an Excel document. You can also do that in Google Docs. However you want to do it, you can write it on a notepad if you want. But I created a contact list that I track. I write the person's name down, or from their business card or whatever, the first date of contact I had with them. When was the last time I emailed them or WhatsApped them? Did I ask them for something? Did they follow up? Did I follow up on what they asked me? And then I try to also use LinkedIn to see what people are up to, because that way, you know, if people post an article, or if they post that something's going on with their company, then you can mention that in the email when you follow up. You can say, oh, I noticed that your company just acquired, you know, XYZ. That's so great. Congratulations, or whatever the case may be. But you want to be able to keep abreast of the trends that are going on in the field. So you know that you at least sound knowledgeable about what's going on. And I would say that, Excel or a spreadsheet or a Google sheet worked for me. Maybe it doesn't work for everyone, but whatever tool you feel works best for you, then use that in order to keep in touch with people. Also LinkedIn, the messaging feature of that platform. Thanks.
For me, I think it has been a mix between going to events, like learning about the industry I am, and if there's gonna be something happening, just trying to assist and not being afraid of going alone, because there's always a lot of people that go alone. I think that's more in person, no? Right now with COVID, I don't know how easy that is, but also right now with social media, I would really recommend to choose, like, for example, if you start building something in Instagram, well, you don't want to have maybe your boss there, or someone that may be a customer, if you're uploading things that when you go to party, no? So I think you have to be like very conscious of who are you adding in which platforms, and how do you use those platforms for. So for example, On Instagram, I have it private, but I have a part that's public, and there I put a lot of things of the business, so people know what we are doing with the business, and they can recommend me when they have a customer they know or something. I'm on top of their mind, no? But I have the group of close friends where I upload things that are more private. So I think you should also, like, social media is great, but you should also be very conscious of what to post where, no? For example, LinkedIn, super professional. Everyone is there more to connect. They don't want to hear about your personal life. It's not Facebook. Don't post things of your personal trips, no? So I think social networks are great. And for example, for groups of WhatsApp, of programs that we've been to and everything, we have like specific rules, and just stick to those rules, no? And know that you have a group there for networking, to use it for help and everything, but don't send chains of messages. Don't send there things that don't have to do with the objective of why you are connecting in a specific group. So I think those are the platforms, and of course I always use, as Malor said, the direct email, no? Like looking for the email where I can write if I wanna meet someone, if I wanna learn. I met like an amazing person that has an amazing project in Guatemala, and it was basically I saw this article in the magazine. I called my aunt that lives in Guatemala, and I'm like, do you know her? And she was like, I don't know her, but my neighbor knows her. I'm gonna ask her. And they gave me the email, and I sent the direct email, no? And a very professional email of what I wanted to learn from them. And they gave me the opportunity to visit Guatemala and visit the project specifically. So I believe there's always a way, and just be careful in what way you are trying to build your network, no? And keep it professional where it has to be professional.
Yes, thank you, Sofia and Malor. I'm really great to talk to you because both of you have different type of jobs, but you are like coming with kind of the same perspective and advice and tips. So it's not a specific field where you can apply networking, but rather to gather all these tips and just apply it and use it. I have a final question for you too, and it has to be how your stays abroad have helped you in your professional careers, especially, for example, Sofia in the US and Malor, you are from the US, but you are here in Mexico. So how these stays, trips, or experiences have helped you in your professional careers? And I don't know who wants to start. Malor.
I'll go ahead and start. Yeah, and I've lived in many different countries. One of the things I do try to do is stay in touch with people, regardless of where I am, regardless of what country I'm living in. And so I am very keen on keeping in touch with the people in my network, especially people who are in my field. And as I said, you know, I will send an email or I will send a note or something just to let people know I'm thinking about them. I make updates on my Facebook page or my LinkedIn. And like, for example, I moved to Mexico City 6 months ago. And I put that on my LinkedIn status, you know, excited about starting my new job in Mexico City. And then people started commenting on that. And then I took a picture of me at the library. And I got lots of compliments and comments. And so I was able to interact then. I think it's important to keep in touch with the professional organizations that you're a part of. Once COVID is over, if you can attend events, I mean, this is great because you at least have a virtual event. If you can attend a virtual event or give a presentation, by all means, do that because you can keep in touch with people and they'll know what you're working on and what you're doing. So just staying involved. And for me, as I said, no matter what country I'm living in, I try to keep in touch with my friends who are all over the world. Thank you.
So for me, it has been, I think, also about learning from different stories. I think, and other ways of taking decisions, or either making business or having best practices. I think you always learn from like hearing about other stories. You feel a lot of inspiration. You also become, I think, very humble of the problems that other societies are facing. And at the end, you see how we're all connected, no? Either you go for a business trip to another country, or you go for a program. For me, for example, studying abroad, when I did my semester in Sweden, I think they have like a very different culture on building society, building projects, and learning from the way of life, no, how they have it, how they manage it. And for example, when I went to the programs in the US, it was also like, for example, from learning what subjects they talk in the table, because I had a host family, and they were maybe subjects that we didn't talk about a lot in Mexico, but that also opens your mind, and you understand, no? There's also, I think, for example, in the US, there's a lot of businesses that are open to see how they work, to show how the lessons they have learned, the technology they use. So it's been, yes, for me, it's been like an opportunity for having inspiration, for stepping a little bit out of my bubble, and like, I don't know, also in the everyday operation of the business, and giving myself time to have a strategy, to open my mind, to think differently, to have advice from someone else. So yes, I think it's also like a very personal opportunity to step aside, and change a little bit the way you think, and just open your mind, no? I think it had, for me, it has been amazing, and I really recommend it for everyone to have the opportunity to live in another country. Wasn't born in Mexico, so since I was very young, had the opportunity. I was always the new one in a new country every 2 years. So for me, it was I had to be very humble, and I had to learn about everyone, and just try to include myself in different groups, no? And that, I think, that has also given me the opportunity to be very open, and share my story, and learn the stories of other people.
Thank you very much for that. And in general, thank you very much for having this time with us in this event. Now it's time to move on to our section of Q&A to hear from our audience. They have been really active, I think, but Yandy, it's your turn.
Great. Thank you, Mabel, and thank you, Malor and Sofia, for sharing your experiences. We've had a few questions on our different channels. First one will be for both. Someone saying, "I'm a very shy person, and when I try to speak with new people, I feel very nervous. What is your advice to overcome this and be able to network in a successful way?" If you want to start first, Sofia.
Yes, well, first I will say you have nothing to lose. I think everyone is the same. It's better a no than I've never tried. So if you go thinking like that, I think it's, yes, you have nothing to lose, no? You may never see that person again. So yes, and the other one, I think practice makes perfect. So you may be shy at the beginning. I think it's never easy, and I still get a little bit nervous. But if you never try, you will never like really improve and fight this fear, no? So the more you practice, the more you give yourself opportunities, the easier you'll feel, and the more confident you will feel, and you will learn how to make it. Everyone had a period of learning. No one was like expert. So I think if you just go with that, thinking about that, it would be easier for you.
Thank you, Mallory.
Yeah, I agree with what Sophia said. Practice, practice, practice. And here's the thing. Most people don't know this, but I'm a shy person too. But because of my job, I can't be shy. So what I would suggest to you is to practice at home first. Practice in the mirror. That elevator speech that you wrote, look at yourself in the mirror and say it over and over again. Get a hairbrush and say it to yourself. If you have a pet, una mascota with a dog, a cat, a fish, a bird, whatever, practice with that pet. If you have a grandma who would listen to you, or your sisters or brothers or cousins, or a close friend who can critique it and say, you know what, that sounded good, or you might want to change this and say it this way. The other thing is take your cell phone and record yourself. Record yourself doing your elevator pitch. Record yourself saying it. And I know most of us don't like to listen to our own voice, but in this case, you're going to have to do it. Listen to yourself and listen and hear what mistakes you're making or how you sound and how you'd like to change that. And I think those are a few things that'll help you to overcome your shyness. And sometimes we never do, but practicing helps it be a little more comfortable to do. So hopefully those are some tips that'll help you when you start networking again.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I do have another question. If you have any resources or tools for for online, networking online that you would like to share.
I think we already a little bit shared it, no?
Yeah, you
Parts of
mentioned
the emails,
mhm.
the social networking, learning about events and approaching the people. I don't think I have another one.
The only other one I would mention is looking for groups that share similar interests. They could be Facebook groups or groups on LinkedIn or groups that are within your professional organization. They call them affinity groups. And so because they're like-minded people who are in those groups. So I think that would be helpful, because then you can start having conversation with people who are interested in the same thing that you're interested in. So you can find that on Facebook. The only thing about Facebook is they let anybody in. So, you know, they might not be who they actually say they are. At least with LinkedIn, you know that they're a little more professional, but I would say that. And then if you went to university, check with your university, maybe the alumni center at your university. They have groups that you can meet with. They have international groups that you can meet with. They've got subject specialties. So if you studied in the Facultad de Letras y Artes or whatever, maybe that group, or if you studied chemistry or whatever the case may be. But I think that those are, I mean, they're not necessarily platforms, but they probably do have platforms. So those groups would probably have their individual platforms. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Malor. This question is for Sofia, since Malor already mentioned a little bit about how she keeps track of her networking. She mentioned when she gets a business card, what she does. Would you like to add anything else, Sofia, how you keep track of your network in person?
Yes, I think also just asking how are you, and like just keep like being updated of the people without any objective, just to learn how everyone is moving, because you never know what's going to happen or where someone will end. And yes, I think that. And the other one is, as Malor said, when you find things, for example, I think 2 days ago, I received an email of one of my mentors of 6 years ago that he sent me like, Sophie, I just saw this company in the US and I think they will be a perfect customer for you. I hope everything is fine. And when I received those emails, like it's a perfect example of how you can send resources or opportunities, or like I remember your conversation, even though it was 5 years ago, and I know that you like this subject. I hope you're interested in this, and just keeping in touch. Like, yes, basically, I think that's, for me, that's keeping track. And even as a friend, like I have friends all over Mexico, and I'm just like, how are you? I hope everything is fine. So
Great, thank you. Thanks. I have a question and a follow-up question about how important do you think it's body language when they're working in person? Mallory, if you would like to start first.
I think body language is really important, especially networking in person. You need to be cognizant of how you come off to other people. You need to at least pretend you're interested if you're not interested. If you're not interested, then just say, oh, thank you so much for a great conversation. I see someone over here that I promised I would get back to. Let me run and catch them before they leave. I mean, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, first and foremost. Always be polite, be gracious, and say, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Body language is also very important when you consider international groups. I worked in 2 countries that were majority Muslim, and you had to keep your distance between male and female. And I couldn't shake a man's hand. And I remember one of the local staff I was working with, I said, what do I need to know when I go into this business meeting? And she said to me, do not stretch your hand out to shake a gentleman's hand. A Muslim man will not touch your hand because you are a woman. And I was like, okay, noted. And so you need to know the customs of a particular culture. I mean, that's an extreme, but I'm just saying that if I hadn't asked, I wouldn't have known, and I would have been embarrassed, because as an American, the first thing I do is I reach my hand out to shake someone's hand if I'm just meeting them. So body language is important. They say to lean in. And so lean in shows that you're interested, but you don't want to get too close. So you want to maintain enough of a distance, but I think body language is very important. Eye contact is very important. In some cultures, direct eye contact is not approved of. And so you need to know what environment you're in. If you don't know, ask someone who is in that culture. That way you don't embarrass yourself or a host for someone else. Thank you.
Thanks.
I would just add, for me, I always say that a smile opens a lot of doors. So for me, like, I think the smile has always been my tool to be approachable. And yes, I think that's, for me, that's a very good tool. And if someone is not a very smiley person, if you wanna approach someone or whatever, if you smile, I think that makes you a little bit more approachable, and it opens conversations.
Great, thank you. I think you already answered my follow-up question. Somebody's asking how to react if someone's not very friendly when interacting.
Yes,
So thank
Malora
you.
already said that.
Yeah. One more question. Have you experienced challenges while networking, and how did you overcome them, besides meeting someone who's probably not very friendly?
For the challenges,
Perhaps, I don't know if you have had maybe a language barrier or something similar, a different challenge.
I think for me, like, the biggest mistake I made, I think it's what Malora already she said it. She talked about with an experience before, but what happened to me is I went to an event, and there was a very important guy, and he asked me like, what are you doing? What's your business? And I explained everything, and he was like, are you looking for investment? And I was like in shock, and I didn't have like the numbers either. Like I couldn't say like yes or no, or because I was, yes, I was not prepared, no. And I tried to look for him again, but he has never answered my emails again. So I think there's sometimes that you just have one chance. You have to be prepared, and for me that was an amazing experience. Uh, but yes, for the other part, I think it's always you feel a little bit nervous. You don't know what's going to happen. You're always in a vulnerable situation, and it's okay to be like that, no? So I think they haven't been like a very big challenge. I think when you're in networking, there's a lot of people that are in the same situation.
Thank you, Sophia. Is there anything else you would like to add, Malor?
No, I think Sophia answered the question. I mean, it's always a challenge. It's hard when you put yourself out there like that. It's just, but you need to be comfortable in who you are and what you do. And nobody knows your brand better than you. And that's what you have to know. They can't read your mind. So you tell them how fabulous you are and how great your product is, or how, whatever you're working on, and just sell it. Be comfortable in what you have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Malor. Thank you for answering all these questions. This was great, getting some responses from our audience. And now, Mabel, the time is yours. We're back with you.
Thank you, Yandy, and thank you to our audience for those questions. Well, it's time to let Malor and Sofia go. Thank you again, Malor and Sofia, for being here today with us and sharing your experiences and advices to highlight the importance of building networking, but also to be human, kind, and humble when doing networking. I think that was really inspired. And well, this has been the last session of our forum. On behalf of the Education USA Network in Mexico, we want to thank you for attending. But before, let's say, Sofia, something.
Yes, sorry. I want to say thank you. And also, I think what has happened to me is I've been to a lot of conferences and everything. And if there's someone that wants a little bit of an advice or whatever of the programs I have been in, I will share my email right now in the chat. And if you want to get in touch, feel free to send me an email, and I'll be super happy to share whatever, no? But thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you, Sofia, for that very kind offer that hopefully everyone can take. And Malor, it would not be the last time you see it, because she runs a very nice program as well. So I'm sure we're gonna see you again soon, Malor. But as I was saying, sadly, this has been the last session of our forum. And on behalf of the Education USA Network in Mexico, we want to thank you for attending. Hopefully you were inspired for all the amazing women that participate in this 3 days event. Also, we hope you have gained valuable insights and knowledge regarding how the relationship between Mexico and the United States can foster your academic and professional development, but as we heard, also your personal development. Remember, there are many opportunities out there, and Education USA is here to guide you through the process of study in the United States. We do this for free, and we do this with all of love. Please follow us on social media and visit our website to keep track of upcoming events. And that has been all. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and have a good night. See you next time.